Black bears are the largest carnivores of the eastern United States, but people's overestimation of their size is almost legendary. The actual size of bears depends on the sex and age of the bear, season of the year, and food abundance. In general, males grow much larger than females. Older bears tend to be heavier, and they tend to be heaviest in the fall, especially during years when food is abundant. Most adult female black bears in Pennsylvania weigh between 150 and 300 pounds, while most adult males weigh over 400 pounds. The heaviest female we ever captured during this study weighed 454 pounds. The heaviest male was 650. However, almost every year we weigh harvested adult male black bears at check stations between 650 and 700 pounds. One question often asked is, how old can bears live to be? Over the past 2 decades, we've radio instrumented over 500 different bears. Some individuals were monitored for over 10 years, but we were never able to answer this question. Amazingly, not even one of all these instrumented bears were ever determined to die of natural causes. Many bears avoided death until their mid to late teens, and then were either run over by a car, shot for damage, or harvested. The oldest male we ever worked with was 20 years old when he was run over by a motorcycle. The oldest female was 23 when she was shot during hunting season. One common fallacy is that bears have notoriously poor vision, but studies have indicated that black bears are not colorblind, and when you work with bears in the field as we have, it soon becomes obvious that their vision is much better than what most people realize. They often detect movements even from relatively long distances. Many people live in bear country their entire lives, yet never see a bear. That's because bears are very inconspicuous. By day, they spend much of their time bedded in dense cover, they rarely vocalize, and do most of their traveling at night. Though you may never see a bear, you're likely to see sign of where they've been, if you're observant and know what to look for. One obvious form of bear sign you may see is claw marks on the bark of trees that bears have climbed. A likely place to find this is in beech groves. The bark of the American beech is smooth and light gray in color. Bears often climb these trees to feed on ripening beech nuts before they drop in the fall. Dark linear scars created by the bear's claws remain visible for many years. One way you can tell if bears are living in an area is to check for claw marks on the bark of evergreen trees along streams and wetlands. Mothers with cubs spend a great deal of time climbing and resting in white pine and hemlock trees found along drainages. Bears have even more of a problem staying cool than we do in the summer, for a variety of reasons. They have a dense coat of fur, often a thick layer of fat, small surface area, and large body mass, all which prevent them from effectively dissipating heat. In compounding this overheating problem, many of the bears are relentlessly pursuing mates during the hottest days of summer. Black bears don't have the option to retreat to air-conditioned rooms as we do. They cool off in wallows, like this one. By monitoring bears with telemetry, we were able to determine when and how long they denned. Pregnant females were usually the first to start denning, often by mid-October, and the last to leave with their cubs in the spring, usually during April. Most other bears started denning during December and were out by mid-March. Deep snow accumulations can cause bears to start denning earlier or remain in their dens later. But it's not just the snow depths or cold weather that causes bears to go into dormancy. It's the lack of food, for even in southern Florida they den for several months in the winter when food is scarce. It appears to be a matter of energetics. When bears have to spend more calories to find food than the food is worth, then it makes more sense to become dormant and live off their stored body fat. We've learned that bears den in a wide variety of structures, but one of the most common places where they spend the winter is in a rock cavity like this. Bear dens are a lot smaller than most people realize. In fact, the average entrance to a bear den is only 17 inches in diameter. So let's go down inside and take a look at what it's like on the interior of a bear den. This den was used by a female and 5 yearlings. Over 800 pounds of bear spent the winter in here, and that would be comparable to 5 people my size packing into this small space. But it makes sense for bears to use small cavities like this because their escaping body heat warms up this inner chamber and saves them valuable energy. But perhaps even more importantly, it increases the survival of cubs being born nearly hairless during the coldest days of the year. Bear dens are often associated with trees. They den in hollow cavities of tree trunks both at ground level and higher up. They also den under the root cavities of trees partially blown over, or in brush piles created from trees that have been cut down. In this scene, a 320-pound female bear is denned under this brush pile. And as you can see, the bear is so well insulated that snow temporarily accumulates on her fur. Many bears dig a huge hole in the ground to den, like an overgrown woodchuck. These excavation dens create a special problem for bears. During winter thaws or heavy rains, they often flood or cave in. We've documented that approximately 20% of all cubs born in excavation dens here in Pennsylvania die either due to drowning or cave-ins. In addition to traditional kinds of dens, we've found bears spending the winter in some very surprising places. Last year, a female bear crawled under this hunting cabin and denned. She raked in most of the leaves from the yard and built this very comfortable nest and chewed off these floor joists, providing additional room for her head. But even more amazing, the man that owns this cabin would stay here on weekends, and he never knew that this bear was denned less than 3 feet beneath his bed. When you're following the radio signal of an instrumented bear during winter, you can't help but wonder where it's going to lead you. Sometimes you follow the signal right to a house and find out the bear died, and someone found it and brought the collar home as a souvenir. But other times, the bear is still wearing the collar, and it simply decided to den under the house. From our perspective, this seems like an unlikely place for a bear to den, but from the bear's perspective, it's a great place to spend the winter. Under the house, the bear has fantastic protection from the wind, the snow, and the rain. At the time I found the bear family den under this house, the owner came out to see what I was doing in his yard. When I told him a mother bear and cubs were denned beneath his house, he could hardly believe it. But one quick peek with a flashlight, and the evidence was irrefutable. The man said he noticed some rocks had been moved under the porch, but thought a raccoon had done it. But once I explained there was no real danger in the bears being there, he became very protective of the bear family, and actually requested that they not be disturbed. The bears stayed the rest of the winter and left in the spring. In the past 2 decades, we've located bears denned under houses nearly every winter, and the homeowners often never knew that the bears were ever even there. We had one female bear den under Interstate 84. She crawled into a 30-inch diameter concrete drainage pipe, 136 feet long, built a nest, and gave birth to 3 cubs. The bear's selection of these man-made dens is a vivid testimony to their amazing adaptability.